All right. Well, thank you very much. I mean, to Corey, to Sabine, and everybody for honoring me and trusting me to give this presentation about stakeholder engagement based on the experience in Costa Rica. So, okay, to start, I have a disclaimer. So let me see, Lucian, if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, the first thing that I want to say is that, I mean, even though this is based on the experience in Costa Rica, I think that there is definitely not a one size fits all strategy for the countries. I mean, we have learned a lot during the last 5 years, and I have tried to include also some lessons learned from other countries in which I have had the opportunity to support and participate. But I think this is definitely not everything. And some of the things that may apply here may not apply in other contexts. So it's just to say that and to have it like a broad vision while I'm giving this presentation. So yes, said that, let's start with the content of this presentation. So what are my recommendations for stakeholder engagement, or what are my thoughts? Let's go with the next one, please. Okay, this is about building relationships. And yes, I mean, building relationships takes time. I mean, it is quite difficult for a national program manager to start prepare knowing all the persons that will be involved in the program. I mean, I think it is, that must be a superman or superwoman and knowing all the people from their civil protection or all the ministries and all the, I mean, knowing not only technical people, but also the leaders of those institutions. So in a way or another, I mean, the national program manager is going to be faced to start new relationships with people. In some cases, it's going to be more, in some cases, it's going to be, I mean, less work, but we will be faced to that. So we need to understand that it takes time. It is a process. I mean, in Costa Rica, it has taken us, with our natural and main counterpart, it has taken us basically 4 or 5 years to have a full engagement with the program. That was the most challenging counterpart. In other cases, it was much easier. Just to give an example, with the municipality of San Jose, the engagement was just after we started the program in 2015. So, I mean, it depends on the institutions, how the way institutions work inside, and the people that are representing these institutions. So don't judge yourself too hard. I mean, we need to make things work out definitely during the period of implementation of the program. But we also need to understand that we need to build these relationships, and we build that with our work, with the seriousness of our work, the trust of our stakeholders, and yeah, I mean, we build upon that. So some things that help in this sense is, I mean, we need to let us know to them. So, I mean, not only personally speaking, but they need to know who is the company. And I think that is quite important, because that provides confidence to stakeholders that the people that are behind this program, I mean, are people that they know what they are doing and they know what, I mean, that they planned this very professionally, and that we have the experience in previous countries or in time and places in the world. So letting them know that history, it is very important, and somehow to repeat it in a way or another along the program, so they have in their mind, in their consciousness, I mean, that background that, hey, I mean, these people, they are good, they know what they are doing. So it's important to somehow repeat that story about our successes, the things that we do right. It's important to communicate them. And also, for example, in the case of Costa Rica, it is nice because people here feel very proud, because they know that the Prepare program started in Costa Rica, So they feel that our experience has been shown to other countries and somehow has helped the development of the program in other countries. So letting them know that, I mean, that this is happening is also good for them too, to feel good about what they are doing, to feel proud, and then to have more involvement and engagement with us, right? So next slide, please, Lucienne. So understanding the country in which you are working is quite important. I mean, this is basic, and I know all of you know that, but it is important to mention it in the presentation. I mean, understanding and knowing the disaster risk management laws and regulations is essential. I mean, we need to know the system in which we are working on, and we need to show that knowledge. We need to show that we know what are we talking about. It is important to understand the institutions, doing like a mapping of all the stakeholders that must be involved, understanding how those institutions work and what are their mandates is super important. And also it is important to understand the cultural aspects. And that's why the role of the national program manager is essential. I mean, having a local person leading these programs helps a lot, because we know how people are in our culture, and we know the subtle reactions or the words in between the lines in the conversations with people, and making that reading. It is important, I mean, to understand the rhythm of the program, the rhythm of the work that we are doing, and what are they also trying to say when they are communicating things to us. So those are like just some basic things that I think we need to mention in this presentation. Then the next one, please, Lucian. Thanks. There are certain conditions that facilitate stakeholder engagement. And for example, I mean, having in a country a disaster risk management legal framework and having an understanding of it is essential. We have had the opportunity to implement the program in a context, in a specific case where we don't have those regulations or that legal framework. And that might be a quite challenging situation in the sense that, I mean, the relationships in emergency response are based mostly in relationships, but not necessarily, because there are regulations that are telling these people what they need to do. And if they don't do it, I mean, there is a law that is going to push them to do it. But if you don't have that, I mean, everything is based on relationships. If they don't have a good relationship, then it's going to be a little bit challenging to make things work, right? So, I mean, this is essential, but is part of the things that we face in the different countries. Sorry. Glenn, I think you have your mic open. Thank you. Great. Then another thing is countries' past experience with disasters and emergencies. I mean, we are in a region where we face several types of disasters, emergencies due to earthquakes, flooding, hurricanes, landslides, many things. But in some places they have more experience than others. So that is also another issue that affects or might affect stakeholder engagement, because that creates like an understanding or an awareness of the risk that they have. And if they feel the risk quite close, it is more likely that they are going to be interested about these kind of programs. But if they feel the risk like very far away, it might happen that they think, no, this is not with me. I mean, this next disaster will happen couple of hundred years, and not necessarily, of course, but having that awareness of risk is quite important with stakeholders. So, and if they don't have that awareness, then it is our job to somehow try to create that awareness, right? To create more engagement with them. So another thing is the experience and continuity of disaster risk management officials within institutions. That varies according to the countries. In the case of Costa Rica, I think that has helped me in the sense that, for example, the technical positions and medium high positions, they have been there usually for the last 10 or 25 years. So it is the same people working on emergencies. Yeah, from in that period of time. So they know each other and their knowledge and experience is accumulated no matter what is the political party at the moment. So that has a very positive view in the sense that they know, I mean, they have that experience, but that might also have like a negative perception in the sense that they know so much and they have so many relationships between them that there is a part that we cannot control, I mean, about the things that are happening between them. Again, if they have one person here from one institution has a difficult relationship with one person in this other institution, it might become difficult for them to work together. So, but I mean, we are human beings. That is part of the experience. So we need to deal with these kind of things too, and that affects the program at the end of the day. So, what else? The experience and continuity, the political stability and political will. Of course, these kind of programs move forward if there is political will from our stakeholders to do the work and to continue working after the program has closed. This is something that depends, again, I think of the maturity of the institutions and the people working on these kind of things. And we also need to acknowledge that usually in all of our countries, people working on disaster risk reduction, they are usually full of work because of the ordinary circumstances. And when there's an emergency, I mean, the situation gets even worse. So these people, I mean, they never have enough time to do all the things that they have to do. So understanding that, but if there is political will, there are more chances that things are going to work and that there will be dedicating time to the program and our activities. But if there's no political will, I mean, things can get very complicated, as many of you might have faced in your countries. Let's talk about the natural counterpart. Who is your natural counterpart in each of your countries or cities? Usually, but not necessarily, that natural counterpart will be your civil protection, or what I call the National Emergency Commission. That those are the governing bodies in disaster risk management in our countries or cities. Usually is that institution, but not necessarily. It might be also a municipality, or it might be civil protection with a municipality according to the jurisdiction where you're working on. So, I mean, identifying that natural counterpart is super important, and creating a strong relationship with that institution is key for the success of the program. That, again, that might take some time, but if you are able to have and to build a strong relationship with those people, the chances are very high that the rest of the relationships with the other institutions are going to flow very easily. In the sense that if that disaster risk reduction governing body is leading and approving the program, they will facilitate the relationships and the incorporation of other institutions within the program. So we need to they need to take the leadership on this from a strategic point of view, and because it is at the end of the day, their responsibility. So I think you should dedicate a lot of time cultivating that relationship and making sure they are involved, they are happy, and that doesn't mean that we are going to let them do whatever they want. I mean, we have our regulations and we have a designed program that we need to achieve, and not necessarily, I mean, saying yes to everything they ask us to do. I mean, we will do the things that are designed in the program, but I mean, having these people on board with us and having a very good communication with them is super important to make this work out, right? What else do we have here? Um, Something that has helped in a way or another, in the case of Costa Rica, is creating a steering committee with a natural counterpart. In my case, that is CNE. In Costa Rica, for this new phase of Prepare, CNE, the executive director of CNE, assigned a group of technical people from CNE to be my natural counterpart for the program. So, for example, I have regular meetings with them, and I mean, they provide a strategical guidelines for the program and support for any key decisions that we have to take for the implementation. So that might work pretty well. The only problem that happens here and happens everywhere is that sometimes they are super busy and they are not necessarily available for all the meetings that we are asking them. But as long as you keep the communication flowing with them and letting them know what is happening and the decisions that we are taking, then I mean, we are covered. So they don't, later on, they cannot say that we didn't communicated anything strategic or very important to the program. So what else? Next slide, please, Lucian. So what happens when my natural counterpart is not involved? First of all, don't panic. I mean, that can create a lot of panic, but please don't panic. That is super, I mean, that is not going to take you anywhere. And the reasons for not being involved could vary a lot. Some of those reasons include, as we said, lack of political will, people being overwhelmed by their jobs in the ordinary circumstances. Maybe they don't see the project as a priority, or perhaps they have personal issues between the people in the institutions involved, so they don't want to work between each other. That can happen. Next one, please, Lucian. Thanks. It could be also that they don't see a benefit of the work being implemented. The work proposed is not part of their priorities. And here it's important to say that, I mean, we need to make sure that our program is part of their priorities, and that's why we do the needs assessments. So this reason should not really happen, but I mean, possibilities are endless. So I included it just to consider it. And it could also be that dedicating their time to the project may mean not receiving an income for those hours invested in the program, particularly with the private sector. So, I mean, in those cases, it's difficult to get people involved because they see as providing their professional time without receiving any monetary income for that. So those cases are a little bit difficult. And again, when it happens with the private sector, then it's easier to get that engagement through chambers that get together different companies, but somehow they are receiving their own their own salary, so they don't feel that they are dedicating time to a program without receiving anything. Let's continue, please. Thank you. In cases where your natural counterpart is not really involved, try to find a champion, and that champion should be a direct beneficiary of the program. Again, I mean, for example, in the first 4 years of Prepare, CNE was not really involved with us, but the municipality of San Jose took that leadership since the beginning, and they became a champion of the program because they understood since day one that the things that we were going to do were benefiting the municipality directly. So they wanted to make sure that things were done in the right way, and that whatever that we were going to do, I mean, was going to be helpful for them in their plans. So that, I mean, that's a possibility that you have. It might be a municipality, it might be another institution. For example, we also had another champion that is MIVA, that is the Ministry of Housing and Human Settlements. And they also found since day one the benefit of the work being done in damage assessments for housing. So they participated actively, I mean, throughout the program until today. So it is a matter of, understanding who is really benefiting of the work that we are doing. And if your natural counterpart does not want to take the leadership, then other institution might take that leadership. What else? Next slide, please. Okay. Make sure, if possible, that the program gets formally registered in the country. I don't know exactly how it works in other countries, and I'm just going to share the experience in Costa Rica in this sense. But for example, we didn't do this completely during the first phases, but in this phase that we're working on, we registered the program with following all the procedures of the Ministry of Planning. And there are formal procedures that the Ministry of Planning has to incorporate programs or projects of international cooperation coming from whatever country around the world. So we did this process. I mean, I worked with CNE and people from the Ministry of Planning. So we registered all the program, had all the procedures completed. So in that way, I mean, the Ministry of Planning can later on ask CNE what are the results of this program, and CNE has to respond to the Ministry of Planning for that, because the president of the country is going to ask for that. So that is a way of accountability to have, and that helps us because that makes CNE, makes the institution obligated to get involved and to take leadership on this program. So I don't know exactly how it works in other countries, but if you have that possibility of doing something similar, I would really recommend to do it, and to ask the institutions what are the processes, or do your own research and try to do it as formal as possible. So that will facilitate accountability and engagement with your stakeholders. What else? Next, please. Next. Thanks. Just a second. So, just a second. Mapping all the possible stakeholders that should be involved in the program is quite important, and you should do that at the beginning. At this point, I'm sure all of you are quite clear on the institutions, agencies that has to be involved in the program, but this is something that is good to do since the start. And along the process, along the period of implementation, more institutions might be identified and might get on board along the way. So that's okay. And I think that as many institutions we can get involved, the better, because the impact is higher. So yeah, I encourage to do that. Then next one, please. A desirable process for stakeholder engagement should consider, yes, this is important. When you're reaching, I mean, once you have established your communication, your relationship with your natural counterpart, I recommend to reach the other institutions that are going to be involved through your natural counterpart and not directly through Miyamoto. And this is something about related to the institutionality of the countries. And it is important because we are very professional and we do things right. It is very important that we follow that institutionality, and that provide us more credibility, more formality, and then the engagement with us will be easier. So don't try to reach out the rest of the stakeholders for the first time alone. Get your natural counterpart involved and go with it. And if it is not your natural counterpart, then that other champion that you identified, and then go with it. And the more people from the different institutions you get involved and use them to present the program, the better. So that, yeah, that gives the strongest perception of what we are doing. Also, yes, and these kind of things promote ownership of the program and the work that we are doing, and that helps at the end of the activities to get them officialized and institutionalized within the institutions. So it is, it is just like one piece after the other, and making it articulate and having a good result at the end. Okay, let's continue. Thanks. Just a second. Try to understand the priorities of those people. Before and during the implementation of the program. Before, and I insist of the importance of doing the needs assessment for the design of the programs that we're going to implement. That needs assessment, I think, is the basis for everything. As long as we understand what are the needs of our institutions and what are the priorities of those institutions to be attended, then we will be able to present a design of activities that are going to fit exactly to that. And just with that, we have a long way gained, in the sense that, we don't have to convince anybody once we start, because they already know that we are doing the things that they need and that is a priority for them. So that development of the needs assessment is crucial. I recommend that we dedicate as much time and resources as possible, because of course they are limited. But if we, it is about doing calls, having meetings. It should not be expensive, but it must be substantial, and the quality of that information that we get will make a great difference while implementing. So that is before. That is a recommendation for before, and a recommendation for the period of implementation would be this is a situation that we have faced in all the places. When the authorities are attending an emergency, it is quite challenging to get their attention. And somehow we need to understand that And somehow we need to prevent that in the design of the program, because there are things that we know are going to happen every year. For example, in Central America, particularly in Costa Rica, I mean, we know that in the period of September through November is the most complicated part of our rainy season. And hurricanes go and come and go and come. And there's going to be a lot of emergencies due to floodings. So most likely, all the people from CNE and the municipal emergency committees, and I mean, all the response bodies are going to be like this with work, attending those situations. So most likely the flow of the work of our programs is going to be slower. So, I mean, we need to include that in the design in a way or another, because I mean, those are periods of time that things are going to, yeah, to work differently. So it's part of the understanding, and understanding also that later on we will have periods where we can push a little bit harder and to get things done, right? I'm just about to finish. Next, please. So some final messages that I want to share with you. Sorry. Saying that sustainability and institutionalization of our work are being built from the start of the program, as I said, since the needs assessment, and that stakeholder engagement is a fundamental piece to achieve both the sustainability and institutionalization. As long as we have strong relationships and commitment from those people, I mean, it would be easier to officialize all the products and to create the awareness for them to continue working once the program has finished. To say that it will help, but not necessarily that's enough, and we all know that. And another thing is, next please, is saying that remember that we are working with human beings, and we are leaders, and we are leaders in the sense that we have to wield a horizontal leadership, because it's not like within the company that there is a boss and then you have people working for you. No, I mean, our leadership is horizontal, and we need to wield it with empathy, understanding that there are people behind that with their own problems. So trying to understand that, I mean, I remember once I told one of you that, I mean, somehow this is about making friends in a way or another. I mean, and it's not that we're going to be best friends of them, we don't have to, but it is also understanding that they do have their own issues, their own loads. And within that, we need to work and we need to implement the program. So making that balance and working with diplomacy is quite important. And yes, being diplomatic whenever possible, try to negotiate. Yes, I mean, it is trying to make that balance and achieving our results, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. So somehow these are my messages. This is not carved in stone, but are some of the things that I can share with you. Some of you might say, no, that this doesn't apply in my country. So I guess from that, I would like to start a discussion with all of you. I mean, to share your own experiences and how that has worked, how stakeholder engagement has worked in your own countries, cities along these years. And please tell me if this information has been useful for you or not. We can debate about that. And yeah, I mean, always with the final purpose of trying to create more, I mean, to share our knowledge and experience between all of us as a team and be better in what we do. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much. Excellent insights from our experience in Costa Rica. So I want to open it up to the group. I'm sure we have that we'd like to share. and questions and comments for Diana. I'd like to add, in addition to the things that Diana said, one thing that I've found to be very helpful, she actually hinted at it, but this idea of generating early successes, quick wins early in the program, even if it's something relatively simple, like a training, trying to get that underway and to generate confidence, that often will lead to additional participation by our partners and stakeholders in the process. Whereas if we're trying to do something more difficult, more complicated from the beginning, and we encounter lots of obstacles, that leads to delays. And sometimes that generates kind of a lack of confidence in the program. So quick wins is something I think that is really important as we implement these very difficult policy and planning programs, especially during a global pandemic. So I'd like to aterrizar this a little bit in terms of like actual examples, and maybe from other PMs first, give them an opportunity to speak. And then Diana, hopefully you'll have some insights as to how you've addressed similar things in Costa Rica over the years. Questions, comments, examples, anyone would like to share?
Hi, Cory. I'd like to mention something.
Great, thank you, Jaime.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am in a very noisy place, so I'm sorry for that. Thank you, Diana, for your presentation and message. In Prepare, in Pasto, Colombia, we went through almost the same stage and problems that Diana mentioned. So something we did recently, which was quite good before writing the proposal for Prepare Eje Cafetero. And I think Diana mentioned it at some point during her presentation. It was carry out a diagnosis and needs analysis together with all possible partners and stakeholders. Of course, we contribute, we propose, but basically the objectives and components of the program were oriented exactly to the real needs of the area or the zone, the studio zone. This, in one way or another,
We're losing you, Jaime, a little bit.
Jaime, we miss you.
It was breaking and now we lost you. Okay.
Well, maybe, Jaime, if you can hear us, we'll come back to you as soon as you get your a better signal. Anything you want to say regarding Jaime's comment, Diana?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's going in with the same idea that I was presenting of the importance of doing that situational analysis, right? I mean, and understanding, I do think that, I mean, that is one of the most important things that we can do before if we even start working. I mean, and that needs assessment, I mean, it's going to make us do a more accurate approximation in our design with our budget. And then stakeholders will feel much more confident that we are doing exactly what they need. And that makes a huge difference. For example, just to give you an example, and this happened a long time ago, at the beginning of preparing Costa Rica, I mean, we knew we were going to work on debris management, but we were not clear what we were going to do. And we had already started the program. But when I started conversations with the municipality of San Jose, and we started talking about debris management, I mean, they clearly said, we don't have a strategy. I mean, we would love to have a strategy. And my eyes opened and I said, yes, let's do a strategy. So those are the kind of things that we need to listen. I mean, to have clear minds and capture that, even though that in that circumstance, we were already running the program. We should have done that before, but it was quite difficult to have done that before in that particular case. But things like that, I mean, they were super interested in having that kind of strategy. So we said, okay, let's do it. I mean, that is part of the things that we were discussed in the proposal. So, I mean, so I think Jaime has a really good point there, and it is reinforcing the idea that I presented.
Sorry, Diana, I lost my connection. And thank you.
We can hear you now, Jaime. Go ahead. Or did you want to complete your thought?
Yeah, no, I just was saying that, yeah, during that diagnosis and need analysis process, we as a company, we propose, we contribute to that ideas, but basically the objectives and the components of the program were oriented exactly to that real needs of the region, right? And this will facilitate any of the activities or the implementation of the program, and then the sustainability, which is very important, as Diana said. Of course, the results, and I think that is something just relevant that comes to my mind to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. Other questions, comments?
Hi, can you hear me well?
Hey, Victoria, yes.
Awesome. I'm coming back from an expert working group meeting, so I'm driving home since before the call started, so I'm sorry it cuts at one point. But I heard the whole presentation, and I want to say that it does apply around 99% to Mexico, because at least here we have followed kind of that strategy, and it has been working great. So thank you for summarizing everything, because it really is important, you know, to have this in mind, especially that we started the new program, and well, we started also Prepare 2, but it was a bit different, right? With Prepare 2, with Prepare Mexico, I feel like it's kind of this what you are presenting, this whole road that you are following, and adding to what Corey also said about the quick wins. That was something that really helped us with Prepare 2, having this first training, and people just started to know who we are, what we do, and how we do things. And that was really, really something that jump-started the program, I feel, for Prepare 2. And well, stakeholder engagement is never easy. I guess you know what we have been facing here with Prepare, with the Institute for Safety Construction, and all of this, that it has been a challenge. But yeah, patience, I guess, it's one of the main things that is, oh, sorry, I didn't have my, that is very important. I think patience is one of the things that are crucial, and understanding that, yeah, they have all their workload and all the things that they normally do, and they will be coming and going from meetings, and just being really tolerant and understanding about that they have another job. And but I really agree with 99% of what you presented. I guess it's the same here, and it was very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. We have about 10 minutes left. Any other comments or questions?
I would like to comment additional thing.
Go ahead, Jesus.
Hello. Yeah, I would like to add to the comments of Victoria that in Mexico City, what we experienced in the last year, especially with the ISC, the Institution for Safety of the Construction of the Buildings, is that they had a bad idea of what were our objectives or what we are doing in Mexico. And also that happened with some other partners as the Engineers Association. So I think that we must to take care of how they perceive our work and what we do in the programs. Because some idea that the director of the institute told us is that he thought that Miyamoto was implementing their own procedures to replace the current strategies that they are following up. After that conversation that we made to clarify what we do and how we do our work, that was more easy to start a conversation and also start working with them. But this was not so easy. Many engineers here in Mexico, they feel that maybe we can make an invasion of their work that previously they have done here. So I think that the very good communication of what we are doing in each country is very good to make the first step for the engagement of the partners. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesus. That's an excellent point. It goes to this idea of clear and consistent communication, establishing a good understanding of what the program intends to achieve and how, that we're not trying to duplicate or do anything over, but we're here to assist, and really we need to find champions within these local institutions who can lead the work. We're just here to facilitate and assist. Thank you. Other comments? We have a few more minutes.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I think that Nicole has super interesting experiences in terms of stakeholder engagement. So Nicole, I don't know if you want to share something. If not, that's okay, but I thought of you.
Yes, I'm still here.
Thank you.
I agree with the last point fully. The first encounter I had with one of the stakeholders was they felt threatened. They were wondering why this foreign company was coming in here and once again ignoring the knowledge base of the local engineers. And they really felt threatened. And for about 6 to 8 months, they kept me at distance. And this was the Board of Engineering. And it was only, and unfortunately because of COVID, we could not meet. And I had to say to Diana that we are a relationship-based society. We need to see people. We need to see their body language. We need to see their facial expressions to get a sense of whether we can trust them or not. And so it was only when we got to meet again, because I did go and visit them before we got locked down, but it was only when we met again that they realized, okay, you really aren't trying to come in here and dictate to us what we should be doing, that you genuinely want to work with us. And that was where we got them to step on board and help with the activities. But prior to that, they would just keep, how would I put it, if it were, they would keep it at arm's length or even a distance. Yeah. So that threat to authority, that threat to local knowledge is always there. And even now, we had a conversation just the other day, Diana and Courtney and I, and it was about who do we engage with? Because my approach was to engage with the national authorities, but there are always local experts with big egos. And in small islands like ours, those local experts become even bigger than usual. So although I engaged with the national authorities, the local experts were going, well, why didn't you call me? And they have the ability to cause you a lot of trouble if you don't engage them early. So we are delicately negotiating that right now. I can't think of anything else. I think Deanna covered most of it. Yeah, well done.
Well, that's an excellent point, though, and it reminds me of something that Kit and Sabine have said a few times, that it's really important to get some of these big ego, especially university technical experts, on the inside of this process with us, even if you have to bring them on as a consultant. But it's very easy to kind of create enemies, people who might feel threatened by what we're doing and would rather sabotage it than support it. So identify those experts early on in the program, try to engage with them and pull them into the process as best as you can. just a couple of minutes. And with that, I just want to give Sabine an opportunity. I know that you've been thinking about this for a long time and have been following these programs since their very beginning. Any additional thoughts you might like to share, Sabine, on stakeholder engagement before we close? Oh, she might have stepped away. Okay, then that's fine. Any other questions or comments though from anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak yet? All right, well, excellent. Thank you all for joining. Diana, for your presentation, really appreciate you putting that together. I think there's some excellent insights and experiences that will hopefully benefit all of us as we implement our programs in the region. We know that this is difficult, and it's been much more difficult by the pandemic. As Nicole said, many of our countries, these are places where people prefer to meet in person, and these virtual meetings are much more difficult. So we appreciate the challenges that you all faced, and just want to encourage you to keep fighting the good fight. And hopefully this has been helpful. So thanks again to all, and look forward to the next presentation.